Hey guys, my name is Nikolai Montanello. Today we will be presenting my course project for Data Communications and Networking 3. Our desired topics will be scaling VLANs, STP or spanning tree protocol, and Etherchannel and HSRP. After my presentation, I will be preparing to design every example of networking types. It's going to be science in the networking, but let the presentation begin. Lesson 1. Topic number 1. Scaling VLANs. What is VLAN trunking protocol or VTP mean? It allows a network administrator to manage VLANs on a switch configured as a VTP server. As a VTP server, it is a distributed and asynchronous VLAN information above its trunk links to VTP-enabled switches throughout the switch networks. What are VTP components? The VTP components are VTP domain, VTP advertisements, VTP modes, and VTP password. What are VTP modes? The modes are VTP server, VTP client, and VTP transparent. The meaning of VTP server. It advertises the VTP domain VLAN information to other VTP-enabled switches in the same VTP domain. It stores the VLAN information for the entire domain in NVRAM, or NVRAM. Is the creation, the deletion, or the remaining of VLANs for the domain. Normally, the VTP mode is default. What does VTP client mean? It cannot be created, changed, or deleted into VLANs. It stores the VLAN information for the whole domain in RAM. It must be a configuration as the VTP client. VTP transparent. It is not a participation in VTP except to forward VTP advertisements to VTP clients and VTP server. When VLANs are created, renamed, or deleted, it is transparently used on switches are local to that switch only. It must be a configuration as a VTP transparent. What do you mean by VTP advertisements? As we use VTP advertisements, they contain the specific images and performance like add or delete of a VLAN, changing a name of its VLAN, VLAN status, etc. Types of VTP advertisements. Summary advertisements. The information of its adjacent switches of VTP domain name and configuration revision number. Advertisement request. This is a response to a summary advertisement message when the summary advertisement contains an increase of configuration revision number than the current value. Subset advertisements. As VLAN information being contained, it is the inclusion of any changes. Normally, Cisco switches have been issued to summary advertisements timed in a 5-minute run. Summary advertisements are informed as adjacent VTP switches of its current VTP domain name and the configuration revision number. What are VTP versions mean? The VTP versions are between VTP version 1 and VTP version 2. As VTP version 1 is normally the default VTP mode on all switches and only the support of its normal range VLANs. As VTP version 2 is the same as VTP version 1, including legacy token ring, network support, and advanced feature support. They include unrecognized type, length, value, or TLV, version-dependent, transparent, mode, and consistency checks. The default VTP configuration. In the show VTP status command, it displays as the VTP status. They are VTP version capable and running, VTP domain name, VTP pruning mode, VTP traps generation, device ID, configuration last modified, VTP operating mode, maximum VLANs in local support, number/count of existing VLANs, revised configuration, MD5 digest. What does VTP caveats mean? In the VTP caveats, it is the VTP configuration revision number when stored in NVMe. The ways of resetting VTP configuration revision number to 0 are change the switch's VTP domain to a non-existent VTP domain and the change to the domain reverting to its original name. Change the switch's VTP mode to transparent and then get back to its previous VTP mode. The steps of or configure for the VTP configuration are: Step 1. Configure the VTP server. Step 2. Configure the VTP domain name and password. Step 3. Configure the VTP clients. Step 4. Configure VLANs on the VTP server. Step 5. Verify the VTP clients have received the new VLAN information. Step 1, configure the VTP server. Step 2, configure the VTP domain name and password. Step 3, configure the VTP clients. Step 4, configure VLANs on the VTP server. Step 5, verify that the VTP clients have received the new VLAN information. Like that. What does VLAN ranges on Catalyst switches mean? As they support over 4,000 VLANs, they are between Catalyst 2960 and 3560 series switches. In normal range of VLANs, they are numbered from 1 to 1005 and stored in VLAN.dat file. In extended range of VLANs, they are numbered 1006 to 4094 and is not stored in VLAN.dat file and thus not learned as VTP. The two ranges of VLANs. Normal range VLANs means it is used in small and medium-sized business and enterprise networks. Extended range VLANs, it means it is enabled as service providers to extend their infrastructure to a greater number of customers. Assigning ports to VLANs. When we have the access port, it can belong to a single VLAN at a time. There is just one exception when an IP phone is connected the right way to the port. As two VLANs associated with the port, there's one for voice and one for data. Verifying VLAN information. Commands in verifying VLANs are show VLAN, show interfaces, show VLAN name, show VLAN brief, show VLAN summary, show interfaces VLAN, VLAN ID. An introduction to dynamic trunking protocol. DTP means it is a Cisco proprietary protocol and is automatically enabled on Catalyst 2960 and Catalyst 3560 series switches. Using the switchboard mode, trunk and switchboard no negotiate will make you enable trunking from a Cisco switch to a device without DTP support. Ways of negotiated interface modes. Switchboard mode access. An interface switch becomes a non-trunk interface. Switchboard mode dynamic auto. An interface becomes a trunk if the neighboring interface is set to trunk or desirable mode. Switchboard mode dynamic desirable. An interface becomes a trunk if the neighboring interface is set to trunk, desirable, or dynamic auto mode. Switchboard mode trunk. An interface becomes a trunk even if the neighboring interface is not a trunk interface. Switchboard no negotiate is the prevention of the interface from generating VTP frames. Inner VLAN configuration issues list. Deleting VLANs. The way of deleting the VLAN will use the no VLAN ID global configuration mode command to delete a VLAN. Switchboard issues. When using the legacy routing model for inter-VLAN routing, the switchboards connected to the router interfaces must be configured with the correct VLANs. Then, when using the router on a stick routing model, the interface on the switch connected to the router must be configured as a trunk port. Verify switch information. The commands to verify switch configuration are show interface ID, switchboard, and show running config interfaces. The inter-VLAN routing on a router has been enabled as it's one of the most common configuration errors is to connect the physical router interface to the wrong switchboard. Verify routing configuration. With router on a stick configurations, assigning the wrong VLAN to the sub-interface is a common problem. And the commands on verifying the routing configurations are show interfaces and the show running config. Verifying IP addresses and subnet mask configuration issues. Use show run. Showing an IP interface to verify IP addressing is marked as a common error when it is an incorrect configuration to an IP address for a subinterface. Use ipconfig to verify the address on a Windows PC is marked as another error when addressing the devices incorrectly. Common problems with VTP list are incompatible VTP versions, VTP password issues, incorrect VTP domain name, all switches set to client mode, and incorrect revision number. And with the trunks list for the common problems, trunk mode mismatches, allowed VLANs and trunks, and native VLAN mismatches. Introduction to layer 3 switching. As we use multi-layer switches, it is okay to achieve high packet processing rates using hardware-based switching. Catalyst multi-layer switches support the following types of layer 3 interfaces are routed for and switch virtual interface. SPI. All layer 3 Cisco Catalyst switches have routing protocol support, but there have been several models of Catalyst switches in requirement to enhance software for specific routing protocol features. In static routing support, Catalyst 2960 series switches have been running with IS 12.255 per layer. Inter VLAN routing with switch virtual interfaces. Switching has high speed and routing has low speed when it was in the early days of switch networks. With an SVI, a virtual interface that is configured with a multi-layer switch, it is proficient to its gateway for a VLAN so that traffic can be routed into or out of that VLAN in IP connectivity to the switch's layer 3 and routing protocol and bridging configurations and support. Then in advantages of SVIs, it has high speed and router on the stick. There is no need to put external links from the switch to the router for routing. A single link has no limits, plus layer 2 edge channels can make it useful for getting more bandwidth. It would be VLAN routing with routed ports. As a routed port, it is a physical type that is similar to an interface on a router both to particular VLAN now associated and those of interfaces support. As you use the no switch port interface command is the way you make the port appropriate to configure a routing port. For troubleshooting layer 3 switch configuration issues, for troubleshooting layer 3 switching issues, the four of them are VLANs, SPIs, routing, and hosts. Now you can refer to the image on top. And one's done. Now, next up, the spanning tree protocol. Issue with layer 1 redundancy, broadcast storms. Broadcast storm. It is so many broadcast frames in the layer 2 loop that use all available bandwidth and make a network unreachable for legitimate network traffic. It causes a denial of service, DOS, and it can develop in seconds and bring the network down. Duplicating unicast frames. The ways of duplicating frames arriving at the destinational PC1 sends a frame destined for PC4. S2 does not have PC4's MAC address in the MAC address table, so forwards the frame out all ports, including the trunks that lead to S1 and S3. S1 sends the frame to PC4. S3 also sends a copy of the frame over to S1, which delivers the same frame into PC4. The meaning of spanning tree protocol. Spanning tree protocol. It creates one logical path through the switch network. All destinations on the network. In two ways, it blocks redundant paths that could cause a loop. STB sends bridge protocol data units between layer 2 devices in order to create an individual logical path. A port on S2 is blocked, so traffic can only flow one way between any pair of devices. When trunk 1 is in critical failure, the blocked port on S2 is not blocked, and S2 and S3 overflow with traffic. Part also of STP. Root bridge. It is a single layer 2 device in the switch network. Root port, a single port of the switch that has the decrease of cost to reach its root bridge. Designated port. It is a selection port per segment each link basis, based on the cost to get back to the root bridge for either side of the link. Alternate port, RTSP only. It is a backup port for its designated port when the root port is not available on the other side. Backup port, RTSP only. It is a backup port for the root port. What is root bridge? As a root bridge it is the lowest bridge ID BID. The ways of the root bridge are originally BID in two fields, bridge priority and MAC address. Bridge priority default is 32 about 768. Can be changeable, and the lowest MAC address if bridge priority is not changed becomes the way to determine for its root bridge. The root path cost. As a root path cost, it is used to determine the role of the port and whether or not the traffic is blocked. It can be the modification with the spanning tree cost interface command. So you can refer to the 802.1d BPDU frame format chart, so you can refer with a chart of it with fields and descriptions. In extended system ID, the bridge ID is used to determine the root bridge on the network. The three separate fields in the BID field of a BPDU frame are bridge priority, extended system ID, and MAC address. In two charts of spanning tree protocols, there has been two charts referred on top between types and characteristics. What are the varieties of spanning tree protocols? STP, PBSD 802.1d-2004. Rapid Spanning Tree Protocol, RSTP or IEEE 802.1w. Rapid PBSD plus symbol, plus sign. Multiple Spanning Tree Protocol or MSTP. The overview of PBSD plus sign. In original 802.1 ID, no, 1D, it defines a common spanning tree. There's a single spanning tree instance for the switch network. None of its load sharing. A single uplink must block for all VLANs and low CPU utilization because there's a single instance of STP is used or calculated. In Cisco PBSD plus sign, VLAN has its own spanning tree instance. There's a single port can block for its single VLAN and forwarding for another VLAN. A balance can be loaded and the CPU can be stressed if there are a large number of used VLANs. The port states in a PBSD plus sign operation. The port states are blocking, listening, learning, forwarding, and disabled. The steps of providing loop-free logical network topology are: step 1, elect the one root bridge. Step 2, select the root port on each non-root bridge. Step 3, select the designated port on each segment. Step 4, use the remaining ports in the switch network to upgrade ports. What are the two link types? Point-to-point means a port in full duplex mode connecting from a single switch to another switch or from a device to a switch. Shared means a port in half duplex mode connecting a hub to its own switch. In chart for Catalyst 2960 default configuration, you can refer to the picture top with its own chart. Ways of configuring and verifying the bridge ID. Here are the two ways of influence the root bridge election process. You have to use the spanning tree VLAN X root primary or secondary command and change the priority value by using the spanning tree VLAN X priority X command. Afterwards, you have to verify the bridge ID and root bridge election by using the show spanning tree command. Portfast BPDU guard. As Portfast, it is used on ports that have an attachment to its end devices. The two ways are: you put a port in the forwarding state and you have to allow the DHCP to work properly. If a BPDUs receive a BPDU guard, disables a port that has Portfast, which is configured. What is spanning tree mode in Rapid PBSD Plus configuration? As Rapid PBSD Plus, it supports RSTP on a per VLAN basis, as PBSD Plus 2960 is default. When it puts a switch into Rapid PBSD Plus mode, it is the spanning tree mode Rapid PBSD. As you have the interface command which designates to a particular port as a point-to-point link, you call the spanning tree link by point-to-point. As a privilege mode command for clearing STP is called the clearing spanning tree detected protocols. In the steps of topology analysis, you can refer to directions on how to analyze the STP topology above. And for the chart, but with new terms and commands, you can refer to the image on top. Last one, 2 down, 1 to go. The last one is Etherchannel HSRP. Introduction to link aggregation. Combining the number of physical links between switches to increase the overall speed of switch-to-switch communication should be possible. STP is active on layer 2 devices, such as switches in default type. As STP, it'll be the way to block its redundant links to prevent switching and routing loops. What are the advantages of header channel? In most configuration tasks, it can be done on its header channel interface instead of on each single port. In the header channel, it is reliable on existing switchboards. In load balancing, it takes place between links that are part of the same header channel. As header channel, it is the making of an aggregation that is seen as a logical link. Also, it provides redundancy because the overall link is seen as a single logical connection. Implementation restrictions. In header channel, you can implement with a group of multiple physical ports into one or more logical header channel links. It cannot be mixed with interface types, or it cannot group with FastEthernet plus Gigabit Ethernet if it is above 800 Mbps/8 Gbps. This bandwidth should provide as a full duplex. You can use either Fast Ether channel and Gigabit Ether channel. As Cisco OS switch, it can be supported with 6 Ethernet channels. 6 Ether channels, yes. It is a creation between a pair of switches / a server and switch. On the configure, it must be returned within the same native VLAN if one side is configured as trunk. If a logical port channel interface and changes to its channel affecting physical interfaces, it should have header channel format. Port aggregation control. As header channels, it can be formed by using PHEB or LACP protocol. What is the figure showing the modes for PHEB? On. In this mode, it is the force of the interface to channel without the PHEB. These interfaces have been a configuration in the on mode, do not exchange PHEB packets. PHEB desirable. In PHEB mode, it is the placement of an interface in an active negotiating state in which the interface initiates negotiations. Sorry, I'm busy now. With other interfaces by sending PHEB packets. PHEB auto. In PHEB mode, it is the placement of an interface in a passive negotiating state to the PHEB packets that it receives but does not have an initiation for PHEB negotiation. What is LACP? Link Aggregation Control Protocol. LACP means a part of an IEEE specification 802.3 AD that allows several physical parts to be bundled to form one logical channel. Modes for LACP on. In this mode, it is the force of an interface to channel without LACP. Interfaces have been a configuration in the on mode to exchange LACP packets. LACP active. In LACP mode, it is placed with a port in an active negotiating state. In this state, the port initiates negotiations with other ports by sending LACP packets. LACP passive. In LACP mode, it is placed with a port in a passive negotiating state. In this state, the port has its response to the LACP packets that it receives, but does not initiate LACP packet negotiation. List of configuration guidelines. Header channel support. In all Ethernet interfaces on all modules, it must be supported with header channel without its requirement that interfaces be physical contiguous or on the same module. Speed and duplex. It configures all interfaces in an header channel to operate at the same speed and in the same duplex mode. VLAN match. All interfaces in the header channel bundle must be in an assignment to the same VLAN or configuring it as a trunk. Range of VLANs. Header channel supports the same allowed range of VLANs on all the interfaces in the trunking header channel. If the allowed range of VLANs is not the same, the interfaces do not form an header channel even when set to auto or desirable mode. The steps of configuring interfaces. Step 1. You have to specify the interfaces that compose the other channel group. Step 2. You need to create the port channel interface with the channel group command in active mode. Step 3. You have to change layer 2 settings in port channel interface configuration mode. Troubleshooting Ether channel. In all interfaces with an Ether channel, it must have the same time to configure speed and duplex mode, native and allowed VLANs on trunks, and access VLAN on an access ports / assigned to its same VLAN. First hop redundancy protocols. Default gateway limitations. If you need a mechanism, it should provide alternate default gateways and switch networks where 2 or more routers are connected to the same VLANs. Router redundancy. It is the prevention of a single point of failure at the default gateway, and a virtual router should be implemented. What are options mean for first hop redundancy protocols? Hot standby router protocol. It is a Cisco proprietary FHRP designed to allow for a transparent failover of a first hop IPv4 device. Virtual router redundancy protocol v2. It is a non-proprietary election protocol that is dynamic to assign responsibility for one or more virtual routers to the VRPP routers on an IPv4 LAN. Gateway Load Balancing Protocol. It is a Cisco proprietary FHRP that protects data traffic from a failed router or circuit, like HSRP and VRRP, while it is also allowed for load balancing between a group of redundant routers. ICMP Router Discovery Protocol. As a legacy FHRP solution, it is specified in RFC 1256. In IRDP, it allows IPv4 hosts to locate routers that provide IPv4 connectivity to other IP networks that are non-local. What are HSRP versions? HSRP v2, it is the expansion of a number of supported groups. Plus, it adds support for authenticating in MD5, which is beyond the scope of this course. HSRP v1, it is used with a multicast address and with a virtual MAC address range. The multicast address is 224.0.0.2, and the virtual MAC address range is 4000.0C07.AC00 to 0000.0C07.ACFF. The steps of HSRP configuration commands. Step 1. You have to configure HSRP version 2. Step 2. You have to configure the virtual IP address for the group. Step 3. You have to configure the priority for a desired active router to make it above 100. Step 4. You have to configure the active router to preempt the standby router in cases where the active router comes online after the standby router. HSRP debug commands. Using debug standby thirst is the way to view the HSRP events as R1 is powered and down. R2 is the assumes of the role of active HSRP router for the 172.16.10.0/24 network. And as the standby 1 preempt command is configured with R1. Also, it initiates a coup and assumes the role of an active router. SR2 actively listens to hello messages during the speak state until it confirms in R1 a new active router and R2 a new standby router. In common HSRP configuration issues, you can refer to the image on the side and then. And lastly, what are the new terms and commands? Since you can refer to the image above. And that's it for our presentation. It has been 3 topics, and now the making of the Cisco Packet Tracer for our course project beckons for me. Thank you for presenting, and goodbye.